So our next presenter is the Honorable Dave Sunday, our brand new Attorney General. A wonderful new and novel idea. We have a prosecutor who's the Attorney General, somebody who actually wants to fight crime, someone who's seen the inside of a courtroom, someone who's met with the victims of violence, someone who's been a champion. So I could read you his bio, which is in our program, but I'm just going to point out two quick points. One is this. As York's DA, I rarely read, but I want to highlight something. As York's District Attorney, he managed to accomplish two things that at first might seem surprising. Crime decreased by 30%. The prison population decreased by 40%. Why? Because he was tough on crime, but he was smart on crime. He understood as a prosecutor the need to go after violent criminals. He understood as a prosecutor and a dad that sometimes you needed an intervention. And through using his experience in the real world as a prosecutor, he was managed to be able to accomplish both those things. That's why we're fortunate to have him as Attorney General. He also focused a great deal of his time on the deadly heroin and fentanyl crisis. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the stage the former District Attorney of York County and someone I am so proud that he is the Attorney General of the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, my friend and yours, the Honorable Dave Sunday.
Thank you, my friend. Thank you. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. It's an honor to be here with everyone. I can't tell you how grateful I am. And I want to start out by saying I can't believe a year ago I was standing here before my primary talking about the amazing things that I wanted to do for Pennsylvania. I feel so blessed and grateful to be in this position. I feel so blessed and grateful to have gotten across the finish line with my good friends, our State Treasurer, Stacey Garrity, our Auditor General, Tim DeFore, our new United States Senator, Dave McCormick, and of course, President Trump. Yep. My story is one that's only possible in America, and I talked about this a lot, but I just want to reemphasize it. So for a lot of people that don't know, I grew up right here in Harrisburg, and I was a little bit of a, I wasn't the most directed youth, and I know no one else here understands what that's like, but I wasn't. And so I joined the Navy when I was 18, right out of high school. I was an enlisted guy, so I swabbed decks and I chipped paint for anyone in here that served. I'm sure some people served, right? Any veterans in here? Oh my God, thank you for your service. So you guys understand. So I was a young man, I swabbed decks and chipped paint. I was deployed all across the world. I was in a desert strike in the Persian Gulf. And I spent a lot of time in Central and South America doing counter-drug ops. I came home and I had no education past high school at that point. And so I started working at UPS. And I did my undergrad during the day, worked at UPS at night. And then I worked at UPS during the day, and I went to law school at night. So I was there for 8 years at UPS. I then became a prosecutor. Of course, I was a longtime prosecutor in York County. I was a special assistant United States attorney, and we did a lot of work protecting our communities, fighting the opioid epidemic, working on the mental health crisis, and going after bad guys. So that's what I did. And I share that with you only because only in America are these opportunities here. It's the only place, and we have to fight to make sure that it stays that way. So with regard to my approach to being a prosecutor, to start with, it's summarized in 2 words, and many of you have heard this. It's accountability and redemption. I say this all the time to anyone I'm speaking to, how important it is that we hold people accountable when they need to be held accountable, but at the same time, we embrace redemption for people that have been held accountable that are returning home from prison. I can tell you right now that like 95% of every single person that goes to jail, they're coming back out. And I can tell you right now, one of the lessons I learned in the Navy and at UPS is that there is a magic that happens when people work, when they realize that they have the ability within themselves to change their lives. And it was something that worked magic on me, I promise you, and I know it works magic for people after they've been held accountable. And so we must always, always embrace redemption when it's appropriate. And that's the core to being a prosecutor, because as a DA, I was a prosecutor, and as the Attorney General, I'm a prosecutor. If our communities aren't safe, literally nothing else matters. And the way that we keep our communities safe is by this crazy idea called enforcing the law. This seems simple, it seems obvious, but as we see in too many of our major cities, it's anything but that. For me, following the facts and the law are my guiding principles. I think that there are a lot of people who are in positions like mine that get distracted by politics. They get distracted by a pursuit of a headline or social media content that can go viral. And that's not, nor will it ever be what my focus is. Rather, my focus is always on returning the Office of Attorney General to its core competencies. What are those core competencies that we are required by law to do? Prosecuting the crimes that we have the jurisdiction to prosecute. Those are child predators, organized crime, drug traffickers, human trafficking, which is a terrible scourge on our communities. Scammers, and I know there's no senior citizens in here, but if there are, you know that scammers is a major issue, and we have to protect senior citizens. Public corruption is an important part of the Attorney General's office. Medicaid fraud, gang violence, protecting Pennsylvania consumers from fraud, like I said, especially senior citizens and our vulnerable populations. Defending the Constitution and the laws of the Commonwealth, that is an unbelievably important part of being the Attorney General. One of the things that I believe gets lost when we talk about prosecutors is how essential consistency is. The laws of our country and our Commonwealth don't change when one prosecutor takes over for another. There isn't a Republican version of the law and then a Democrat version of the law. I think that we've seen over the last 4 years or so what happens when we start prosecuting people and not crimes. What I mean by that is we are supposed to see a crime and we charge that crime regardless of who committed it. Unfortunately, the temptation is to find someone you may not agree with and find a reason to investigate or charge them with a crime, or to morph the law so that it fits our ideological viewpoint. That absolutely can never, ever happen. When we do that, we lose the rule of law, and when people don't know what the law is, chaos follows. Now, my son is 10. The first time I ran for DA, he was almost 1, so that poor kid has grown up with me doing this. But, my son and I love Marvel movies. And in my office, there's a little Spider-Man display. And I'm constantly reminded, and he also reminds me, of the guiding principles passed down to Peter Parker, right? And his Uncle Ben, from his Uncle Ben, and that is, with great power comes great responsibility. I think that should be a mantra that's taught in every single law school across this country. And it's a motto that I remember and I think about every single day. As I began my time as Attorney General, I know that some want me to do unto others as they have done unto us, regardless of what the law says. It's up to us now that we are entrusted with power to stop that cycle that is destroying the fabric of our wonderful nation. There are risks for those who want to return us to a more sane way of governing. And following the law and going where the facts require me to go means I won't always be the most popular guy in the room. I can safely say that in my first 2 months as Attorney General, I've made decisions that have driven people crazy from the entire political spectrum. And that's what happens when you do this magical thing called following the law. The laws are the laws, though, and I will be consistent in following them. That may at times put me in a position that means I'm following a law that I may not like, or a law that I disagree with, or a law that I may very much agree with, or a law that I'm indifferent about. But the reality is, the solution in America is not to follow, or it's not to ignore the law just because you may not like it. The solution is to work with your legislators and have those laws changed. That is how our system of government works when it works well. When someone decides to ignore the law, it unilaterally creates our own version of the law. Think about that. When our legislators pass a law and the governor signs it into law, that is the will of the people as exhibited through the ballot box. 13 million Pennsylvanians. And if you have a district attorney or an attorney general that just says, nope, I'm not doing it, then what does that do? That puts that person in the position of the people. And that can never be the place. We have to follow the law. I think that is a critical part of being the attorney general. When someone asks me how I'm doing, I often say to them, every day is a blessing. And it is. Every single day is a blessing. And I believe that. And I say it as a reminder, not only to myself, but the person that I'm talking to, that today is a gift. And the question is, what are we going to do, the gift that we have today? I am so unbelievably blessed to have this opportunity to serve our Commonwealth. Every single day, the Office of Attorney General has the capacity to make a difference in our Commonwealth, and I want everyone I work with to do everything that we can to do the most good with the time that we have. When I think about the world that my son has to grow up in, I oftentimes get very scared and frightened because of the challenges that we face with the evil that comes oftentimes through the internet. The children today have to face difficulties that none of us could have ever imagined. When I was a kid, there was no, and also my dad was a Marine, and then he became a school teacher. So for multiple reasons, there was no chance that some bad actor that wanted to prey upon me would come in our home, trust me. But in today's world, no matter who we are, where we're at, where we live, it's possible, and people all day long try to get to our children through the internet. I have made it my mission to do everything I can to protect children, to put resources into going after child predators, to put resources into going after people that are scamming seniors, to put resources into dismantling gangs that cause violence throughout this entire Commonwealth, to go after the drug traffickers that are trafficking poison to our children. When I was a kid, if you made a mistake, and I know this doesn't apply to anyone in here, but if you made a mistake, you might have a hangover. In today's world, a mistake from a child, one mistake, could unfortunately equal death because of how severe these drugs are, how dangerous they are, how strong they are, and how prevalent they are. I've made it my mission to do everything I can to address these issues of public safety because, very simply, if our communities aren't safe, literally nothing else matters. Nothing else matters. And I know as a dad, I hope to God that someday when I'm done and I'm retired and I look back on this world, that I know that I put my heart and soul into fighting the tough battles. You know, I'll tell you that, it's not easy running for office. It's very difficult. And my heart goes out to everyone that has the courage to try. It can be devastating and hurtful on your families. And I can tell you guys right now that my number one job in this world is dad. Being a dad and a husband is the most important thing in my life because our families are the building block of our entire society, and it's my most important job. And when you run for office, you leave them at home a lot, you go out, you're all throughout the community, and it can be unbelievably difficult. People say terrible things about you. I see heads shaking up and down that aren't even remotely true, and it gets very, very nasty and hard. And so my young son and I bonded through this process, and the way that we bonded was I told him that sometimes in life, you have to have the courage to do things that are unbelievably hard. You have to. And you may not even know what the outcome's going to be, but you have to have the courage to try. And that's the conversation that he and I had literally every single day during my campaign. And I didn't know what the outcome was going to be, but I did put my heart and soul into it. And I know so many other people that are running for office or have done the same thing. I just want to let everyone here know that being the Attorney General is the honor of my lifetime. I'm a career prosecutor. I think we have to get back to basics as a society. We have to focus on our core competencies, focus on our mission, fight to put bad guys in jail, fight to make our communities safer, and do everything we can to protect our children. I'm not perfect, but I promise you that I will work as absolutely hard as I can with the gifts that God gave me. and I will always be here to fight for every single one of you. God bless you. Thank you for being here, and thank you for listening.